Angry Mgtow here. And millennials are selling their possessions to pay for food. Millennials are selling their possessions to pay for food. This is really a serious issue. I'm just going to put on this little fair use notice right here because we're going to be looking at RT.com. And RT is actually, they have an article up titled Millennials Selling Their Possessions to Pay for Food. It's based around a survey, so this is actually, there's some empirical data that was used here from that they collected from people, millennials. Now, we're going to look at the article together and go a little further into it. New figures show people born after 1983, I was born in 1983, my people. People born after 1983 are more likely to have borrowed money from friends and family or sold their possessions in order to pay their bills. A survey by broker Norton Finance revealed that over a third of 18 to 34-year-olds, my people, I'm 33, are going without food and heating as stalling salaries, rising living costs turn making ends meet into a nightmare for young people. With this piece of research, we wanted to take a snapshot of British finances, looking at how each generation is handling their money. The group's managing director, Paul Stringer, said, "It struck us that tongue-tied, don't you hate that? It struck us that the younger generation is having a tough time at the moment, something that's evidenced in headlines on a regular basis. A whopping 40% of those quizzed by Norton Finance admitted to spending beyond their means. And I'm pretty sure that when they break this down between men and women, women are having a significantly more difficult time living within their means. The average British salary showed a minimal 0.3% increase this January, but most regional incomes have fallen significantly over the last year. London in particular saw a decline of more than 4%, with job vacancies exceeding 244,000. Costs, on the other hand, have been steadily growing, with the rent on a one-bedroom home costing just over €800, which is equivalent to the US of $977 per month. That's pretty high. Let's go ahead and delve a little bit further into that. Now that's on average, and on average, well over 1,500 per month euros in the capital. So basically, one-bedroom housing is about almost $1,000 in less populated regions in the year, but in the capital of the UK, average rent is about over 1,500 euros per month. And this is something we're also seeing in the United States. Many predict things will get much worse for millennials after Article 50 is triggered to begin the formal process of leaving the EU, with last year's referendum already being blamed for a weak pound and a 1.8% rise in inflation. According to Norton Finance, millennials are also incapable of buying homes and getting rid of bad credit. Looking at a tweet from this guy named Bay Grills saying, according to Resolution Foundation, older generations have made $2.7 trillion for themselves at the expense of millennials. We are seeing a drop in home ownership in those aged between 25 and 34, and many members of this generation are coming out of university with large amounts of student loan debt. Sterner added, perhaps the most striking finding is that 1 in 10 youngsters believe it to be unlikely they'll ever retire. More than a quarter of those quizzed said they felt as though their parents definitely had it better than them. A previous report by the financial group found that 1 in 4 millennials are losing sleep over their finances, with many lying to their friends and family about the state of their bank account. That's the entire article, and as you can see, this is a serious problem that is working its way throughout society. Who is to actually blame for this? How did this happen? To be very honest, this is what ends up happening when globalism, Marxism, socialism, and especially feminism were allowed to run wild. Young people no longer, young people were basically told, especially young women, that they could do anything. And they went to college getting a bunch of useless gender studies degrees, and now they can't survive on them. Young people are graduating with college loans, debt, that they can never pay for. It's downright miserable. It's crazy. Millennials are selling their possessions to pay for food. You think this is a joke, guys? In Greece, the price of sex from teenagers, the most desirable group, is going for €2 on average. Not as low as €2, €2. This means that some women are probably selling sex for less than €1. Or for about €1. Why are they doing this? So they can just buy food, because they're hungry. So they can afford a cheese sandwich. It talks about the value of a woman's sexuality as well. When things are extremely bad, sex doesn't cut it. And all the men of value who can actually have earning potential, they're fleeing Greece, going to other parts of Europe to find opportunities, while the women are being left behind. The very notion that women are equal and superior to men is literally becoming, we're literally having a social showdown with that. Women can basically trumpet that they're equal to men all they want, but at the end of the day, men will go out and actually have to find a way to survive, while women often turn to their sexuality to find a man to provide for them when times get bad and there are no government programs in place to help them. This is what's happening in Greece right now. People are starving to death. In Venezuela, people are starving to death. And it's quite frightening, because in Venezuela, women are starving so that they can buy tampons. And the craziest thing about this notion is that even in Venezuela, the women are saying that tampons should be a human right. Where I'm scratching my head on this is the fact that toilet paper is not a human right in Venezuela. In fact, people go months without toilet paper in Venezuela. Months without toilet paper. Yet they say tampons should be a human right. How can you argue that tampons should be a human right and toilet paper should not? It's an absolute joke. Well, are you going to die without tampons? No. Are you going to die without toilet paper? No, but it's going to considerably make your life a lot more difficult. There are some differences, though. For example, if a woman's on her period, she can actually use a rag or some type of cloth to catch the blood. Or should I say the uterine lining. So she basically pad her underwear. I'm not saying it's the most optimal solution, but it is a solution. In cases where toilet paper is not available, how are people wiping their butts? In Venezuela, water is also very limited. In fact, water is so limited in Venezuela, they were talking about the idea of using reusable pads. But water is so limited in many places in Venezuela that actually washing reusable pads is not exactly feasible. Plus, people have talked about the hygienic level of doing this. There's a lot of consideration in this respect. Women have complained and demanded so many luxuries, and now they're going to find themselves without a lot of things. I think about how women are living these days, and it's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate, but women have created a situation for themselves, and a lot of manginas have also pushed this forward. I mean, women are going to suffer, millennial women are going to suffer the most as shit hits the fan, which is happening right now. I want to know what you guys think, if you agree that as things continue to get worse for millennials, it's going to be millennial women who suffer the worst. Also, I make at least 3 of these videos every day, so please consider becoming a Patreon by visiting my YouTube homepage and clicking on the Patreon link in the header of the page. So there it is. Or you can also find a link to my Patreon in the description of this video. You can become a Patreon for as little as $5. And I'll be setting up a Discord server soon, so you'll be able to gain access to Discord and have regular conversations. So definitely, please sign up for Patreon, because that's what keeps this account going. That's what keeps this channel going. Also, never miss another Angry Mgtow video by enabling notifications. You can do this by clicking on the notification link below any video. And when you click on the notification button, let me find that for you guys. When you enable notifications, you just when you enable notifications, you click on the notification button. You'll see a pop that says "Send me all notifications for this channel." Check the box, hit save, and you'll always receive a notification whenever I'm live streaming or put out a new video. And I'm not actually done with this video yet. I'm going to talk a bit more because this topic is something that I think that needs a bit more coverage. Because feminism has wrecked society. Feminism has had a drastic effect on society. Feminism has had a major repercussive term on social welfare. Because social welfare programs are vanishing. Without social welfare programs, women have many fewer options. Women have always benefited from social welfare programs. I hate to say social welfare programs are a crutch for women, but that's what they've always been. They've been a backup plan. You know, and it's funny, women do not excel in the same way men do in many fields. In most fields, to be very honest. And it's just a difference in biology. You know, I'm looking at something interesting, like a commenter in my comments named Jack Sparrow points out, the only gender studies majors that have value are MD in OBGYN, neuroscience, and MD in psychiatry. All the other studies of gender are merely subject views of how men and women interact, and that's just talking about how someone feels in history. Now here's the interesting thing. He said the only gender studies majors. So this is not a gender studies major. Gender studies is specifically feminist studies. What you're talking about is specializations. For example, specializing in OBGYN, that's essentially, you know, gynecology and obstetricians, people who deliver babies and prenatal care and postnatal care. Or neuroscience, and looking at the differences between how a man's brain works and a woman's brain works so that you can address the needs differently. That's equity, because we're not exactly the same, despite the fact that society tries to say that gender does not exist. You know, it's funny because I was talking about in another video, women going to Mars, and what if they only sent women to Mars? And Jack Sparrow points out, don't forget to pack tampons and Mgtow for the trip to Mars. If we were to only send women to Mars, it would be hilarious watching them rip each other to part in pieces when they could not agree on anything. You know, they often think that, oh, it's men who are getting all the privilege, men who are doing this. You know what? How about you take all the risk? Let women take all the risk and let men reap the rewards. Let them go and colonize Mars for us. But the thing is, it would never happen. Because they are not as capable and they are not as driven. Whenever you don't have a man among the midst, women basically, they cannot get any decision made because everything is done through groupthink. All women have to agree in a community before anything gets done. Or they just sit around doing nothing. Where men operate individually outside of the other men. Men will go and get food for themselves, water for themselves. I mean, if there's an established hierarchy, men will follow that hierarchy, if they all agree upon it. But in a case where it's every man for themselves, men will essentially start doing things individually, and they begin pooling their resources together to make everyone else more comfortable. For example, we looked at a survivor experiment where there was a case where they took men and put them on one island, they put women on another island, and after, you know, and basically within a few days, we had a thriving civilization going, where one man was tired of sitting on the ground, so he began building chairs and built a table and benches and stools. And eventually they had an entire table to sit at with benches. People were hungry, so some guys went and started hunting, and they made that their daily thing. Another guy, he didn't want to sleep outside, so he began building a hut. And every single day, it began evolving more and more and more until they had a house, more or less. It was really ridiculous. Now, on the female side of things, the women were starving. They basically got to their island, and instead of boiling their water, they began drinking rainwater. They had at the very least a doctor with them, and I think also a paramedic. The doctor did not know that people shouldn't drink rainwater. She didn't stop them from drinking rainwater. I want you guys to understand that the doctor that went along with them, she was a part of the actual group. She was a part of the actual group. So on the men's side, they had a doctor, a paramedic, they had different people with different skills. They were not there to simply assist. They were contestants on the show. On the female side, they also had a doctor. She was also a contestant on the show. She did absolutely nothing. The women drank rainwater and they got sick after a few days. They got sick and started having the stomach flu. They literally ate all their food and began starving. They slept on the beach and they slept outside as water washed down upon them. They had no shelter. They had literally nothing for themselves. And then eventually they mixed the two islands. They brought some men from the men's island, some women from the women's island. The women who came from the women's island to the men's island found it wonderful because there was food and shelter, while the men who went over to the women's island were pissed off when they discovered that they had not built any shelter. They asked them, where's your shelter? They said, we haven't built any. Where's your food? We ate it all. What the hell have you done? We haven't done anything. We were waiting for you. Let me know what you think in the comment section if you agree that women don't typically create anything of value. And it's a biological difference between men and women. I want to know what you guys think. If it's men who create and women that consume. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to Mgtow or death. And cheers.